This is the Labour MP Dawn Butler has accused the police of racially profiling her after she and a friend were stopped while travelling in a car in East London. Butler said police officers stopped her black male friend who was driving a nice car and questioned her while she was in the passenger seat. The MP for Brent claimed Brent Central filmed the heated confrontation in Hackney with the two police officers.
And I am recording.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You're more than entitled to.
I am concerned about the reason for the stop. So that's what I'm concerned about. So because we should be able to drive wherever we want in London, because you're not just contained to the area where you live.
No, of course.
So that is my concern.
The Met Police said in a statement that an officer had incorrectly entered the registration number into a police computer which identified the car as registered to an address in Yorkshire. How can Dawn Butler possibly know she was stopped? The police stopped her because it was a racist belief. How could she even know that? 0344 499 1000. Let's speak now with Maurice McLeod, Vice Chair of Race on the Agenda, and Inaya Folarin Iman, who's the founder of the Equiano Project. Firstly, Maurice, to kick us off on this, if you would, Maurice McLeod, how could she know she was racially profiled?
She doesn't know for a fact, I guess, in this individual case that she was racially profiled. As she made clear, the question she was asking was, well, then why was I stopped then? If you've run my plates and have some confusion about where this car's registered, why did you run the plates in the first place? What was it that gave you concern or suspicion about me and and the driver? I think that's a perfectly valid question. And when the numbers of stop and search are so disproportionately heavily on black people, I think it's a very, very valid thing for her to say.
But based on that, I mean, if you extend that logic, then the police would pull no black people over.
If we extend what logic? I don't understand.
She's arguing that it could only be because of why else would you? I mean, the police pull people up all the time. And there's not always a specific reason. If they're doing a proactive, a kid had just been murdered or killed in one part of London, and, the police are out and about, they stop cars regularly.
But so there's supposed to be a reason for the stop, and the reason that they gave, as I've just said, is that they ran the plates and thought there was something a bit strange about it. It turns out that they misentered the number. But why were they entering a number? Why did they choose that? They don't stop. They don't run the plates of every single car, do they? So
no,
why
they don't. But when I was stopped recently, and not too far away from where she was stopped, I also couldn't give you a reason why they stopped. But my thinking was, well, it's the police. They sometimes stop cars.
Yeah, they do sometimes stop cars. I was stopped 32 times in 3 months. So
I haven't quite had it that bad, as I've said to you before, Maurice. I would never dispute your figures on disparity here. But on this particular occasion, I'm wondering whether this was a moment where Dawn Butler thought she'd hit the jackpot and be able to claim something that demonstrably isn't the case. I mean, you could argue she's just making this up.
So you're arguing that sort of black people enjoy being stopped and hassled on going about their normal business. Why would she?
I think Dawn Butler thought it was Christmas when they pulled her over. You only got to watch the video to see that.
I think she thought it was amusing that after having conversations with Cressida Dick, who says there's no institutional racism in the Met Police.
Which is true. So what's so she had the hump with Cressida Dick and thought, this is payback time. I'm going to have a right old moment here.
No, I think she went, wow, this is exactly proving the points that I've been making.
Get out of here. Come on, Maurice. She thought this was a great moment to do a little bit of race baiting, tease it up a little bit and cause some trouble.
So, okay, one, you're not in her mind, and nor am I. Two, to suggest that someone complaining about something unfair is in some way...
It's not unfair if the police stop you. It happens in a civilised society. That's why we're a civilised society, because we have a police service.
It's unfair if certain groups get stopped more than others for no additional criminality.
But that doesn't mean that group never gets stopped. That's the problem.
I didn't say no one should ever get stopped. I think there's an issue with stop and search as a whole, but I didn't say no one should ever get stopped.
Okay, let's bring in another voice here. Inaya Folarin Iman, who's with us, founder of the Equiano Project. What are your thoughts on this, Inaya?
To be honest, I waited a few hours before I commented because obviously, I take the accusation of racism incredibly seriously. And so I wanted to wait for more information to come out. And as it's transpired, I'm completely disgusted to find that a member of parliament, someone who's paid for by the taxpayer, will engage in this kind of completely baseless race baiting solely for the purpose of propelling, attention in her direction. If she thought that there was any wrongdoing, she should have waited for more information to come out. The first thing that she did was plaster it on social media, go to all of the mainstream media, Channel 4, put out a video plastering an ordinary, clearly decent and polite police officer to, millions of people and complain about racism. I find that completely disgusting. What it is doing is actually massively corroding the relationship between black people and the police, because she's perpetuating the assumption that any interaction, is instantly a racialized or one of racism, when that is just factually wrong. As you've just alluded to, someone was just brutally murdered in daylight in London. The police often put themselves in really horrific situations and put their life on the line to keep this country safe. And for a member of parliament to use her position to, foment racial tensions, I find that to be morally reprehensible. And if it completely turns out that she has actually completely spread this, smear and lie against the police, then I think that, that she should be framed as a deeply questionable person, because that is completely unacceptable. I take racism incredibly seriously, and for a person in a position of power to exploit the tensions we have now for their own gain, I find that, completely sickening. I really do.
Maurice, do you want to come back in on that, exploiting the current situation?
Yeah, I find that really sad, to be honest, that someone would make that allegation against Dawn. Basically, pointing out where something is wrong is not wrong in itself. Calling out racism is exactly what we should be doing. It's exactly what Dawn should be doing, and I'm really glad that she did. The fact that we're arguing about this, the Metropolitan Police have apologised. They concede that they did something wrong. So I'm not quite sure.
They haven't quite apologised. They've simply said that we stopped somebody and there was nothing to see here, and there was an error with a computer glitch, and as a result, there's nothing to see here. So that's fine, isn't it?
And they apologised. So, but the question that Dawn's asked, and why was her number run in the first place? What was the purpose for it?
I have no idea. But what if it was a case? What would you say, Maurice? Then, if they did clock the fact that the person driving the car, I think was mixed race, as I understand. I can't confirm that either way, so forgive me. But as I understand it, what if there was a correlation between the area they were in and certain crimes, knife crime and the like, and they thought that they would pull the car over for that reason? Would that still be a problem?
I'm not really sure what you're saying. You're saying if there was an area of high crime, as Hackney is.
Yep, high knife crime, and they saw somebody in a car, what would be the problem with pulling that person over if they thought we are looking for, in this particular occasion, more perpetrators who are non-white than we are white? Other crimes, of course, will look differently. What if that was the case? Would that still not be the police doing their job?
What you're suggesting is then in areas of high crime, every black person should be stopped and searched, because that's how you clamp down on crime. The way you clamp down on crime...
knife. I'm talking knife crime. I'm talking specifically about knife and gang crime, where there is a huge out of the stratosphere disproportionality in young black victims and young perpetrators of those crimes.
Absolutely, and I've been talking about this for 20 years. Absolutely, there's a disparity, and you don't fix it by brutalizing or. But
that's not brutalizing, is it? One of the ways you might fix it is by pulling somebody over if you think, oh, maybe could there be something different about this car, this person in this car? I mean, that's called policing, isn't it?
What was different about two black people in a relatively nice car?
I've got no idea. I'm not a copper, but I'm not on the lookout for people who might be out there with malintent. So, as a police officer, I'm assuming. And bearing in mind, even the police aren't saying this, and to be fair, neither is Dawn Butler. But what if that was the case? If the police were being proactive and they are looking for, young black guys under 40, and that's going to be part of their operation, their proactive policing operation.
So yeah, and that's what happens.
See, if I was a copper in that neck of the woods, I'd be pulling over every black kid left, right, and centre. If I was working in Sevenoaks, I'd be pulling over every white kid. That's what I'd be doing. That's part of being a cop, isn't it?
It's not, to be honest. And what that
no, you don't want it to be that, do you, Maurice? That's the problem. That's what it should be.
Of course I don't want it to be. I want the police to police with consent. I want the police to have good community relations. I don't want a whole community feeling that they can't talk to the police because all they've had from the police is hassle all their lives. That's what I want. I want the community to be able to work with police officers. And this sort of action makes that harder.
Okay, let me just put that to Inaya on that very point. Is that reasonable, Inaya, that Maurice is saying, look, we see more and more of these kind of cases. We saw it with the two athletes recently. There was another case where a guy was filmed being pulled over. There's a compounding effect of this. Young black kids will have their trust in the police eroded, I think is Maurice's broader point here.
So I think that the police stop people for a whole range of reasons. As you've just described, you've been stopped by the police. Many white people have been stopped by the police. When you create a narrative that any interaction between the police and a black person is inherently one that is a racialized and one of kind of racism, I think that is the type of things that actually corrode relations. And again, it's just not true. This very blanket narrative that the black community, which are people from all ranges of backgrounds that live in all parts of the country, have a negative view on the police. A recent poll by YouGov found that 3 in 4 working class black people in England and Wales have confidence in their local police force. That was actually higher than the white British population as a whole. So we have this very one-sided narrative that is demeaning the police, completely smearing them, and I think that does more damage to police relations and community relations. But on this specific point, as we've just alluded to, we have seen no evidence whatsoever has been described that this was a racist incident, and that is what Dawn Butler has said. It's not about she was questioning why. That's completely legitimate. If we are having interactions with the police, it's completely legitimate to ask why. She said that it was a racist incident and an example of institutional racism. She provided no evidence for that, and I think that is the kind of rhetoric that corrodes relations.
Okay, great to talk to you both. Thank you. Inaya Folarin Iman, who's the founder of the Equiano Project, a project which seeks to facilitate conversations about freedom and universalism. And before that, the other voice you heard, Maurice McLeod, Vice Chair of Race on the Agenda.